You grew up knowing you could do anything. As a soldier in the U.S. Army, you'll test your limits and feel the pride of doing things you never thought possible. With guaranteed training in one of more than 150 career fields, up to $40,000 cash enlistment bonus, you'll earn a steady paycheck, get money for college, and gain valuable experience while you learn how to be a valued team leader. To find out more, call your local Army recruiter or visit us at goarmy.com. There's strong, and then there's Army Strong.
Hello, I'm Rob Beckley, lead singer of the band Pillar. I served in the Army Reserve for 8 years, and it taught me lessons in teamwork, leadership, and organizational skills that I still use today. Serving part-time in the Army Reserve also offers skill training, money for college, and bonuses up to $20,000. So if you're up to the challenge, talk to your local Army Reserve recruiter today or check us out online at goarmyreserve.com. You too can be Army Strong in the Army Reserve.
My name is Bobby. I'm a veteran and lost my leg to a roadside bomb. My victory was going from a wheelchair to becoming a weightlifting champion.
I'm Sam. I'm a veteran. My victory was finding a career that I could be proud of.
At DAV, we're on a mission, helping veterans of all generations get the benefits they've earned.
I'm Cece. My victory was finishing my education.
When America's veterans win, we all win. Help us support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
And now, from the cheap seats with Chris DeLambert and Brandon Atkins.
Welcome to the cheap seats, everybody. I'm Chris DeLambert. Brandon Atkins, as always. Diamond Dave
Howdy.
Kaplan's in the house. And we've got a special guest, the voice of the Carolina Tar Heels, Jones Angell. Thanks for coming by.
As soon as I heard that Diamond David Kaplan was going to be here, I said, I too have to be there. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to hear from Diamond Dave, and looking forward to talking with you guys.
We knew at some point there'd be some redeeming value other than the golf insight that Dave brings to the table. So that's
that
good.
golf insight's just not enough for you.
Got to work harder, brother.
Okay.
Got to work harder. I do have to say before we get started, I know Brandon's like a little kid.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I have
And
to
then you
admit.
walk in with the Carolina Brew embroidered shirt. And be careful, because if that fits, he might take it right
Now, I'm
off.
going to tell you something.
I think he's safe.
I do not have any shirt left. I think I have about 3 that I always wear during the summertime because the rest of my shirts have the NC logo on there. They're either white, navy blue, or Carolina blue, and that's about all I have at this point. So I do have 2 or 3 other ones, but I thought I'd fly the flag here today with the NC.
Diamond Dave's rocking his Carolina blue tie.
I have no idea what you were thinking about, Brandon, when you got out of bed this morning, because every other day of the month, you've worn something Carolina blue, and I'm checking socks, something. What do you have, blue drawers on? Is that what's going on?
It's definitely his underwear.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. God, Dave, you're good.
So, I think you've been on the job how long at UNC?
Wow. So this was my 6th year as the play-by-play guy. Of course, Woody Durham was the 40-year voice of the Tar Heels and retired after the 2011 season. For 6 years prior to that, I was handling our pregame, halftime, postgame stuff for football and basketball. And then even before that, for a long time, I'd been doing different things with our network. I started interning with our network when I was in school. So around 1999, 2000, 2001, right in that time period, I started helping out, just kind of doing whatever I could. Had the opportunity to get on the air some. I did women's soccer on the internet for our first ever internet-only broadcast. I did women's basketball for 2 years. I'd kind of fill in and do scoreboard stuff for our men's basketball and football games. Did our baseball for 9 or 10 years as well. So I had the opportunity to do a lot of different things. So I've been around for a while now, but this was my 6th year handling the play-by-play for football and basketball.
So basically the relationship with UNC goes all the way back to when you were a student there.
Oh, sure. Well, my relationship with UNC goes further back than that, just because I've always loved the Tar Heels. I mean, my mom went to Carolina, my dad did, my sister did, my wife did, my brother-in-law did. So, I mean, we have a very strong Tar Heel family. And, my dad and I would always, when I was growing up, we would listen to the Tar Heels, turn down the sound on the TV. It's harder to do now because of the delay, but we'd turn the sound down on the TV and listen to Woody and Mick call the games, and I loved it. And then we'd go up and watch a couple games a year in Chapel Hill. I grew up down in Jacksonville, about 2 hours away, but we just loved the Tar Heels. And so when I got the opportunity not only to go to school there, but then a chance to work with Woody and with Mick, that was a dream come true for me.
Jones, all that sounds great, but did you ever get the opportunity, the privilege to call one of Dave's intramural sports?
He was on the team.
I was on the team. Oh, we had a dynasty, man.
Hold on, you weren't the guy who couldn't swim in the...
No, that was Johnny Lynn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
No, we participated in just about everything. We were best at softball, though, right?
Softball was our...
We won
the campus championship one year, and I think we lost in the final the year before.
Yep.
So how did you get snubbed when he was the intramural player of the year or something like that? How did that go down?
Yeah, I'm looking at the two of you.
Yeah.
You're obviously the more athletic looking. And, Dave's an effort guy.
Yeah,
he's a glue guy.
He's a hustle guy.
Yeah.
We all felt sorry for David we just felt sorry for David, so we let him think that he won that award.
Right. No, so here's the true story. My backpack was falling apart, my book bag, and the male athlete of the year gets a free book bag. So they knew, and we had an inside. Actually, one of Jones's old roommates, Matt Rivenbark, he was part of the rec department, and he said, Dave, we need somebody from the Crazy Mules, and Dave needs a new backpack. So he plays about everything. Let's just give it to him, and that's probably pretty accurate.
I like that. Now, were you guys roommates in college?
Kind of, sort of, for a little bit.
Okay, which one was the messy roommate?
Neither one of us.
Really?
Definitely. Oh, yeah. There were plenty of those, but not one of us.
Yeah. We had a house in northern Chatham County that I guess is still standing. Good.
If it is, who knows what kind of health code violations
and
there are.
There was 20 guys that ran through that thing over the years. I was there only for a short time because I had graduated and when the house was rented out, but...
Gotcha. Now, Jones, you grew up in a military family, is that correct?
I did. I was born here in Sanford. My dad was in the Marine Corps and was stationed in Okinawa at the time, and my mom grew up in Sanford. And so when she was pregnant with me and they found out Dad had to go to Okinawa, she didn't want to have a baby overseas, and so she moved back in with her mom. And so I was born here. Dad came back, when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 months old, something like that. And we moved to Philadelphia for a couple of years and then down to Jacksonville, as I mentioned earlier, where Camp Lejeune is. And Camp Lejeune's the second largest Marine Corps base in the country, largest on the East Coast. And so actually we ended up staying there. My parents had moved around a ton before that, but we ended up staying there. In fact, my parents still live down there. And so, but a military family, but fortunately for me, I didn't have a whole lot of jumping around because at that point in my dad's career, he was pretty settled in what he was doing.
Got it. I have this vision of you as a kid. All of us played in the backyard and, threw the football around, but I have this vision of you doing play-by-play, with a bunch of 6-year-olds playing flag football, and you're, running down the field and just calling it. Is this something you always wanted to do?
Well, I think everybody probably does the, Angell for the win for 3, and I mean, everybody's going to do that when they grow up. And, it wasn't something that I absolutely knew I wanted to do. But I ended up being able to combine a couple things that I really enjoyed, and that I've always enjoyed athletics. I've enjoyed being around it. I just wasn't good enough to play at any kind of significant level. And so, but I wanted to stay around athletics, and I understood as time went on, I used to do some theater stuff, and so I knew that I was comfortable in front of crowds, and that part of it didn't bother me or make me nervous or anything like that. And so I was able to then, after working like I talked about with the network for a while and learning from two guys who have reached an incredible level of success in our business. Woody, who is one of the greatest college play-by-play men, if not the greatest of all time. And then you have Mick Mixon, of course, who's now the play-by-play voice of the Panthers. And in fact, I talked to Mick on the phone just a little bit ago today. So to get to learn from both of those guys about this particular craft was very helpful for me. And so I was kind of able to marry all of those things together with this profession. And I don't try to shy away from this. I mean, I got lucky as far as the timing of when Woody retired. I had established myself enough at that point to be able to be a legitimate contender for the job. Carolina is a place where Tar Heel ties matter. Having a history with the Tar Heels does matter. And I think that fans were at least comfortable isn't the right word, but at least recognized me enough that at the beginning they were willing to give me a chance with what we were doing. And so when you put all those things together, I think is kind of how it all came about.
That's awesome. Quick question. We know Diamond Dave, that's his nickname. Did you ever have a nickname, sports nickname in school?
I don't think so.
If you don't have one, I have an idea if you don't.
I'm ready. I need one.
Jones, Angel of Death.
Oh, come on.
How about that?
I like it.
It's pretty aggressive.
It is. That's a little extreme, man. We work on that and we'll get back to the next one.
But hey, speaking of names, your first name's not Jones, right?
No, yes. So I get asked this all the time if I created my name for radio, because obviously my name is not a traditional name. But so my full name is Monrovie is my first name.
Awesome name.
Monrovie, and then Jones is my middle name, and then Angell, and I'm the fourth. My dad goes by Rovie. His dad went by Monrovie, and so I mean it's a family name. Now I do have a son, and we did not go to the fifth. We went ahead and stopped that bad boy at the fourth. Okay. But so
did that get you disinvited from Thanksgiving or anything?
No, everybody was okay with it.
I can see everybody pulling up. Here comes Monrovie. Here's Rovie. Here's Jones.
That's it. And here's what's his name. But it's it's a little bit of a different and unique name. I can't tell you how many times I've been called Angell Jones in my life. It happens all the time because people just assume that it's backwards on the form or whatever. Gotcha. And it's always enjoyable when you're some doctor's office, dentist's office, even growing up in school or whatever, when they had to go by your first name and they were trying to figure out Monrovie and how to say it, and that was always a nice little adventure for me.
It is a cool name, though.
Right?
Monrovie.
You can't go wrong, Monrovie, Jones.
That's right. I mean, it's a win-win situation for me.
Now, talking about win-win situations, you talked about having worked with Mick Mixon and Woody Durham.
Mm-hmm.
And when Woody announced that he was retired, there was a nationwide search. What was when that began, did you think it could be a real thing?
Yes, just because near the end of Woody's career, I had been traveling with both sports. So I knew the coaches, I knew the people kind of around the job that Woody was doing. And I also was, and I don't mean this in any kind of negative way towards Woody, I was running a lot of the broadcast as far as the production work, the pregame, halftime, postgame, just all that kind of stuff, just because Woody was, in his 40th year and didn't want to mess with that stuff anymore.
I was going to say,
right.
Woody wouldn't about to touch it.
Yeah, and
that's
so
what I do.
Y'all just be glad I'm here.
I do a lot of that here.
Sure. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, so at some point you reach a level of your career where you don't want to mess with that, which is totally understandable. But so I really felt like I knew our broadcast due to my history both with the network and with the school and with the athletic department and our coaches. I felt like I understood the culture better than anybody that they were going to bring in from the outside. And I have a great working relationship with all the guys who were on our broadcast. So Eric Montross, our analyst for basketball. At the time, it was Rick Steinbacher, our analyst for football. So just, all those things, I think, gave me the opportunity and gave me that inroad early on.
All right, very good.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You grew up knowing you could do anything. As a soldier in the U.S. Army, you'll test your limits and feel the pride of doing things you never thought possible. With guaranteed training in one of more than 150 career fields, up to $40,000 cash enlistment bonus, you'll earn a steady paycheck, get money for college, and gain valuable experience while you learn how to be a valued team leader. To find out more, call your local Army recruiter or visit us at goarmy.com. There's strong, and then there's Army strong.
The V Foundation and board member Robin Roberts are dedicated to declaring victory over cancer by funding cutting-edge research.
Jim Valvano's greatest legacy is the V Foundation. You can help join the fight, give the gift of time. We need passion, we need teamwork and momentum. The time to act is now. There's not a moment to lose.
Every dollar counts. Every day counts. To find out how you can join us to defeat cancer, please visit jimmyv.org.
My name is Bobby. I'm a veteran and lost my leg to a roadside bomb. My victory was going from a wheelchair to becoming a weightlifting champion.
I'm Sam. I'm a veteran. My victory was finding a career that I could be proud of.
At DAV, we're on a mission, helping veterans of all generations get the benefits they've earned.
I'm Cece. My victory was finishing my education.
When America's veterans win, we all win. Help us support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Welcome back to From the Cheap Seats.
Welcome back to From the Cheap Seats. With us today is Jones Angell. Appreciate you hanging out, man.
Oh, man, I'm excited. We hadn't talked about anything exciting yet, though. We're talking about me. How boring is that? Let's talk about some Tar Heels, man.
Let's do that. Before we get into the teams themselves, I do have to ask, what's your favorite anecdote about Woody? You've got to have a story in your pocket.
Sure. You know, I think the thing that always impressed me the most about Woody was his work ethic and his dedication to his preparation for his craft. Because I think at some point, Woody could have just said, you know what, I'm Woody Durham. I'm just going to roll up there in the game, do what I want to do. People are going to love it because I'm so established, and I'm just going to do my thing.
That's how I come into the show.
Yeah, I assume that's how we all handle work. But so, Woody was such a hard worker. And he was so prepared for every broadcast. And that was the same for the last game he did compared to the first game he ever did. And I remember the first time that I sat next to him, I was relatively young at that point. And, I had been doing some baseball and women's basketball. And, I thought I had it all figured out, dude, right? And so I'm going into this football broadcast. We were playing Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. And I decided that the best way to approach my position was to prepare like I was going to do the play-by-play. Because I knew eventually I wanted to do it, whether it was at Carolina or somewhere else. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I kind of, I got all my stuff prepared, and I go into the game, and I sit down, and I look at what Woody had in front of him, and it absolutely blew my mind. It blew my mind the amount of work that he had done in the week leading up to the game, the statistical information, the biographical information, the relevant notes, the stuff he had from the coaches that he had taught, just all these different pieces of information that he had in front of him. And what I have since learned is that, not only do you have to do that for every game, you barely use any of it. You use about 10%, 5% of what you get ready for. But as Woody used to say, and I agree with, you never know what 5 or 10% it's going to be. And then finally, not only do you have to do the work, but you have to have a system that works for you so that you can find that information quickly when you need it. It doesn't do you any good to have a great note or a great stat or something that you think can really be an asset to what's happening in the game, but you're sitting there going, and you can't find it. That does you no good.
We've never done that before.
And so learning that from him, I think, is the most valuable thing I have ever learned in broadcasting, is to do your preparation, do your work to this extraordinarily high level, but also have a system to understand and find that information quickly. I'll forever be indebted to him for learning that.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, all your counterparts out there who are on the job with their school for years and years and years and years, don't get to go to a national championship. You go to back-to-back national championships with the basketball team. Do you kind of have a feel? Are you in the moment? Are you realizing? And I know Carolina has a winning history, but are you realizing how special that is, like, to be a part of that?
Yeah, I think you have to appreciate it some, or you're not enjoying what you're doing, I guess, if that makes sense. I mean,
Sure.
I fully understand that. To me, Carolina is the best college job in the country. I'm sure there's some other places that can make that argument, but that list is pretty short. I think
Sure.
you could probably name 5 or 7 schools that feel that way, and Carolina is certainly in that conversation. And the reason it is because, number one, you're covering teams that win at a very high level. You're covering 99% of the time players that are good guys that you enjoy being around, that do things the right way. And then number 3, there's a lot of interest in what you're doing. And so when you're able to kind of have all of that together is when I think you have a very special place. And to be able to go to the football championship game 2 seasons ago, to go to the Final Four back-to-back years, the championship game back-to-back years, to win it this season, that kind of stuff doesn't happen all the time at other places.
Right.
But it does at Carolina. You go to championship games, you go to Final Fours, you have these unbelievable opportunities. You play in the Maui Invitational. I mean, you get to do all this really neat stuff, and that's just because of the power of Carolina and Carolina basketball and Carolina football, and to be loosely associated with that is incredible.
So as we move out of this national championship team, the specter,
do we have to? Can we just hold on to it forever?
The specter of probation is looming.
Sure.
A little bit of a bloodletting with the underclassmen leaving this year. Tony Bradley was unexpected. Justin Jackson will be missed. What are we going to see from Carolina in 17-18?
Well, I think both football and basketball next year are going to be in a little bit of a transition season. Football lost 90% of its offensive production. When you're losing your starting quarterback, who goes number 2 overall in the draft, you lose your top 3 running backs, you lose your top 3 receivers, and you lose 3 starters on the offensive line. You don't just magically fix all of that like that. So there will be some challenges, I think, offensively early for Carolina football next year. They do have the kid from LSU, Brandon Harris, coming in as a graduate transfer at the QB spot, which I do think will help. But that will be, I think, a challenge early on. And then from the basketball side of things, the best news I can tell you is that Joel Berry is returning for the Tar Heels.
Yeah.
Joel Berry is an extraordinarily talented player. He was voted by his teammates as the captain of the national championship team. He's just a tough dude. And as he kind of sets the tone for how Carolina plays. And so to have him back, I think, is extraordinarily valuable. And, of course, the Heels have a big recruiting class coming in, 5 freshmen plus the transfer from Pittsburgh and Cameron Johnson, who will be eligible right away, and some nice pieces around those other guys returning: Luke May, Theo Pinson, Seventh Woods, Brandon Robinson. So there are some guys returning as well. But I think it's reasonable to expect a little bit of a transition time next season for Carolina as those guys get used to playing with each other. And Carolina's going to have to play differently next year because they do not have the experienced size that they normally have. I mean, that was one of the reasons why they were so good these last couple of years is they just dominated teams on the glass, and that will be more of a challenge next season.
So does that mean they run even more this upcoming season?
I don't know if they run even more, but I would expect them to maybe play just a little more perimeter oriented because it makes sense. I mean, your best players, at least on paper right now, are Joel Berry and Theo Pinson and Cam Johnson from Pitt. Those are your most experienced, most accomplished guys right now. Even Luke May, Luke is a forward, but is not a post you up, down low. I mean, he can do that, but that's not the strength of his game. And so I would expect Carolina to be more perimeter oriented than they have been in the past. But here's the I told you the best news was Joel Berry returning. That's actually 1B. 1A of the best news I can tell you is that Roy Williams is still their head coach. Yeah, and so you're talking about one of the greatest head coaches in the history of college basketball. He is going to find a way It may not happen on November 15th, but he, by the end of the year, as Carolina always does, will be playing its best basketball. He will have found a way to make sure that those guys are fitting together as best they can, and they'll be competing for NCAA tournament and trying to move on to another Final Four.
How much of the void that Justin Jackson leaves because I think Cameron Johnson is a similar player.
Yes.
Good outside shooter. How much can he fill?
It's a good question, Dave, and I do think that Cameron Johnson and Justin Jackson are similar type of players, although Justin, I think, does two things that will be hard to replicate. Number one is he, of course, had that terrific kind of floater where he'd get in the lane and could make that shot under really difficult situations. That's not a normal shot for somebody. He made one against, I think it was Oregon in the Final Four where he was going to the baseline on the right. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult shot that he makes looks easy. But also, and I don't think Justin got enough credit for this, and this is where Cam Johnson, I think, and he said this, needs to improve. Justin Jackson, by the end of the season, was a big-time defender. Big time. Yes. I mean, he is one of the biggest reasons Carolina won that game against Kentucky in the NCAA tournament was his defense on Malik Monk. He did a terrific job against Dylan Brooks in the Final Four game, did a terrific job against Nigel Williams-Goss from Gonzaga in the championship game. And so Carolina will need Cam Johnson to be more than just a spot-up shooter if he is going to fill the role that Justin Jackson had. Right. Because while Justin, the most noticeable thing was that his three-point shooting got so much better. But he did a lot more than just that.
You know, my favorite part of that Kentucky game was when Stillman White came in, and you could see Fox just licking his lips, and then Fox picks up 2 quick fouls.
I think my favorite part was when Luke May made that shot at the end. Yeah. But I did also enjoy that play. And Stillman White's a good player. You know, good. Is, and man. Roy Williams has said he told Stillman this, and he said it multiple times in press conferences, said it at the end of the end of season banquet. He said, Stillman, you should have played more. He said I should have put you in the game more than I did. Because while Stillman is not De'Aaron Fox, he is not Joel Berry, but he was a very solid college basketball player. Could make a jump shot, could run the team, didn't turn the ball over, and he gave Carolina some big minutes at different times.
To pivot out of basketball for a second, we've got a few minutes left. But
we can go all day. I don't have anywhere else to go.
All right, we can work that out.
Good question,
I want to know, last year you talked about 90% of the offense in Carolina rolling out. When we come back out of the break, I want you to tell the world, Mitch Trubisky came from under the radar all the way to the second pick in the draft in a year, essentially.
I still can't believe that.
It's Mitchell, by the way.
Mitchell, my fault.
$29 million he has now.
When we come back from the break, I want you to, for the folks in Chicago, reassure them and tell them things they don't know about Mitchell Trubisky so they feel a little bit better about him being taken at 2.
I'll be ready.
All right. You're listening to From the Cheap Seats with Chris DeLambert, Brandon Atkins, Diamond Dave Kaplan. And Jones Angel's been nice enough to grace us with his presence. We're having fun. We'll be back for another segment right after the break.
You're listening to Chris DeLambert and Brandon Atkins. You might not love your seats, but you'll love the show.
When I was just a tiny baby, I was stolen from my parents. I was imprisoned in a cramped cage and was touched and photographed completely against my will, solely for somebody's profit. Then I started to grow bigger, and they locked me away for life.
If you knew that was the life of a tiger cub, would you still pay to pet her? Learn how they're exploited through petting and photo ops at cubabuse.com.
Hello, I'm Rob Beckley, lead singer of the band Pillar. I served in the Army Reserve for 8 years, and it taught me lessons in teamwork, leadership, and organizational skills that I still use today. Serving part-time in the Army Reserve also offers skill training, money for college, and bonuses up to $20,000. So if you're up to the challenge, talk to your local Army Reserve recruiter today or check us out online at goarmyreserve.com. You too can be Army strong in the Army Reserve.
Everyone deserves a decent place to live.
Everyone.
Todos. Decent shelter is something we all need to thrive. Through shelter, we empower. Visit Habitat.org to donate today.